represent the second House district, which is in Chicago and includes the neighborhoods of Pilsen, Bridgeport, Chinatown, McKinley Park, Brighton Park, and Back of the Yards. Exactly a month ago, the Illinois legislature passed and Governor Pritzker signed into law a bill raising the state minimum wage to $15 an hour. This historic measure will make a tremendous difference in the lives of millions of Illinoisans. But a significant segment of the population will see no benefit from this bill. Because of an exemption in federal labor laws, known as the Section 14C waiver, employers are legally authorized to pay workers with a disability less than the minimum wage. In Illinois, more than 100 entities that hold the 14C certificates now employ over 10,000 people with disabilities, paying them a sub-minimum wage. Data from the Illinois Department of Labor shows that some of these wages fall below $1 an hour, including individuals with mild disabilities who are paid as low as 40 to 50 cents an hour. What we are proposing with HB 3340, the Illinois Dignity and Pay Act, is to require the state's Department of Human Services to develop and implement a plan over the next 5 years to phase out the practice of the use of sub-minimum wages for people with disabilities in Illinois, and to move our state to a more dignified system in which people with disabilities in sub-minimum wage positions are moved to competitive integrated work environments. The bill also proposes to establish a 14C worker protection fund that will help employers to pursue competitive integrated employment options for disabled workers, pursue meaningful daytime activity options for disabled workers, and to subsidize wages that are currently sub-minimum wage. In other words, bring them up to the state minimum wage. Illinois will join 6 states, including Vermont, Oregon, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Maryland, and Alaska, that have already passed similar legislation. And to share more about the importance of this legislation, I would like for you to hear from some of our self-advocates who can tell you about their experiences from their own personal perspectives. But just before that, I'd like to introduce Ryan Croak, who is Executive Director of the Illinois Network of Centers for Independent Living, and he'll kick off the rest of the press conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Maha. It's a privilege to be with you and to be part of this coalition of advocates from across the state who represent employers, consumers, and people who care about their communities. We have built a strong statewide coalition focused on the issue of making sure that everybody's treated fairly when it comes to work and wages, because it will strengthen our state. I think this is not an easy issue. We're not here to demonize or villainize any provider. What we're here to do is to say with a loud and unequivocal voice that we need to strengthen the system of services and supports for people with all disabilities in Illinois. And I don't want to labor on any of the details at this moment, because I think it's really important to hear the voices of people who have had challenges with employment and who know from a personal perspective just how important it is to recognize the dignity of all work by paying a fair and equal minimum wage to all adults regardless of their abilities. So if it's okay, I might ask Ronnie Patrick, who is the chair of the Statewide Rehabilitation Council and staff at Access Living of Metropolitan Chicago, to say a few words.
Thank you, Ryan. Hi, I'm Ronnie Patrick, and I'm the Director of Independent Living at Access Living. We are a community reintegration provider for Division of Rehabilitation Services, and we help teenagers with disabilities to be able to find competitive jobs. Sheltered workshops are not an option that's viable for the future and sustainability of Illinois, nor of Illinoisans with disabilities. And so that we can grow as a state and make sure that we're really being a cutting edge employer for people with disabilities, it's time now to be able to phase out and to say that people with disabilities are worth competitive wages, and that we are going to be able to employ those young people graduating from high school today to be able to get into jobs that they deserve and wages that they deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ronnie. And next, I'd like to ask Mary Heddle, who's prepared a statement that will be read by Megan Norland. Mary, do you mind coming up with us? Okay.
My name is Mary Heddle. I am a self-advocate. I graduated college with a BSW. The Department of Human Services paid for my education. I understood that they would help me find employment. This has not happened. I work on grants through the state of Illinois. I would love to have a part-time job. My sister works out in the community for at least minimum wage, but could not keep her earnings. She just moved to a new silo where she is now able to keep some of her earnings. I would like to page 10. See that for all people with developmental disabilities. To discuss this matter further, you can contact me. Thank you, Mary Heddle. Want me to read your number? Okay.
And I know Megan has also prepared some remarks, and Megan, if you'd like to share them now,
Sure.
go right ahead.
So, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. As Ryan said, my name is Megan Norland. I'm originally from LaSalle, Illinois. As of like 3 weeks ago, I relocated from Springfield to start my first full-time job with the Illinois Network of Centers for Independent Living. And I'm here today to ask you to support the Illinois Dignity Pay Act. Over the last decade, I have had the privilege of working with many self-advocates as a volunteer advisor to a self-advocacy group in my hometown, which was based in a 14C certificate holding agency as part of and as a part-time employee of the Illinois Self-Advocacy Alliance. In my time as a volunteer advisor, I saw the same things happen in almost every meeting. First, everyone would be encouraged to attend, and those that did always wanted to talk about jobs. Where do we find them and how do I get them? And those that didn't attend said, sorry Meg, I'm not coming today, I gotta work. It was always up to them, and this is what this bill is about. Giving people a choice to find or even build a job that they want, or keep working in a workshop if they wish, and be rewarded accordingly with a real wage, which they can then choose to spend any way they wish, as you all do. That's all.
Thank you, Megan. With us today, we have a few other advocates and employers who have found ways to employ workers with disabilities at least the minimum wage. I want to acknowledge them. Michael Predmore is a member of the Statewide Rehabilitation Council, and he represents Mark First, which is based in Bloomington Normal. Mark First is an organization that took the courageous step to move workers with disabilities away from the sub-minimum wage and toward competitive integrated work. I also want to acknowledge Melinda McKeever, who is here representing the Peoria Production Shop, an organization based in Peoria that does remarkable work employing people in very sophisticated jobs in the community in an integrated setting, and that does include people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It is important to note, I think, that Teresa Ma and other advocates who are part of this coalition have been very open to feedback, have been very flexible about coming up with a solution that will work in the long-term interests of our state and in the long-term interests of all families who are concerned about this issue. I want to just pause, step back, see if anybody has questions or if Representative Ma might want to say more.
Well, I'd just like to add that, you know, when we were having the debate about raising the minimum wage in Illinois, I noticed that a lot of my colleagues were not aware of the existence of the 14C waivers, and you know, there would be arguments about the impact on people with disabilities that simply were uninformed. And there's a lot of educating that we need to do to let my colleagues in the broader public know and understand more about this issue. And in 2 weeks, we are planning to have a subject matter hearing, so there will be more opportunities for self-advocates to share their stories, and for organizations that have been able to make the changes that we're looking for the entire state to talk about what they've been able to do. And I welcome, you know, more of you to come out to that subject matter hearing so that we can learn more about the issues that are being proposed in this bill.
Any questions?
It sounds to me like legal discrimination. I mean, how could we have passed up on this for so long?
It is pretty shocking once you discover the prevalence of inclusive sub-minimum wage for workers with disabilities, and I think it is about time that we work on a plan that we can start to implement in our state. You know, we've seen other states have success with implementing their plans, and I think that it's important that we take a proactive step rather than to be forced to do it, you know, under a consent decree or you know, some kind of lawsuit. So, you know, I'm really proud to be a part of this coalition that is taking a positive step in the right direction, and it is, as I said, long overdue.
Is there currently any minimum whatsoever for wages?
We examined records from the Illinois Department of Labor, which does track to a degree the wages paid by 14C employers to workers with disabilities, and we found in those records situations of people being paid on average under 10 cents an hour, and many cases of individuals even classified as having mild or moderate disabilities being paid less than $1 an hour, and those records are available at a website called www.dignityinpay.org. You know, I do want to emphasize that it is not our intent to demonize or villainize organizations serving people with developmental disabilities. Our intent here is to strengthen the entire system, to make it better for every family and for every worker and for every employer, frankly. It's not easy to be a 14C employer in terms of the paperwork and bureaucracy, and there are many complications associated with carrying out this kind of work. We want to do better by everybody. This is not about pointing fingers or casting aspersions. There's a real sincere drive here to just get right with history. The state of Maryland, which we largely modeled this effort after, has more than 3 years of experience driving toward eliminating the sub-minimum wage. When the bill was passed more than 3 years ago in Maryland, there were 41 sheltered workshop organizations. Those 41 organizations are still alive and well. They've changed. And I think everybody can acknowledge, like Mark first did, that we need change. And that's what this is all about.
So you mentioned subsidies sort of from the employer or from the state to the employers. Is there a split on that, like 50-50, or is that not in the bill yet?
not at this time.
Can you talk about who some of the 14C organizations are, like what kind of industries they're working in and what kind of jobs they're providing?
It's a mix, and I'd be happy to provide you with the entire list. There are 112 organizations. It's a mix of not-for-profit organizations and other organizations that the U.S. Department of Labor tracks. So I'd be happy to just give you the full list.
112 in Illinois.
Correct. As of July of 2018.
Can we just have everyone who spoke spell their name for us, Mary and Megan and Ronnie?
Sure.
R-A-H, N like Nancy, E-E, and then Patrick like the holiday 2 days ago. That's like my favorite joke.
Works all year round.
Hey, do we need get any beer or 4 Blue Clover?
Mary, do you want?
Spell it out for you?
Yeah.
Alright, so Mary Edel, Maryyhettel, right?
Yeah.
I'm bad at spelling. And then my name is Megan, M-E-G-A-N, Norlin, N-O-R-L-I-N.
Ryan Croak. Last name is spelled C-R-O-K-E.
Thank you all.
Did you get the names of the organizations too?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.